It was a dark and stormy night, and Mary was tossing and turning in her bed. She had been plagued by nightmares of a monster for weeks, and they were only getting worse. She could feel the monster's hot breath on her neck and its sharp claws digging into her skin. "Please, make it stop," she cried out in her sleep. But the nightmare wouldn't end. Mary woke up with a start, drenched in sweat. She tried to calm herself down, telling herself it was just a dream. But deep down, she knew that something wasn't right. The next morning, Mary was still feeling shaken from the nightmare. She went about her day as usual, trying to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled over her. But every time she closed her eyes, she could see the monster from her nightmares. That night, Mary went to bed early, hoping to get a good night's sleep. But as soon as she closed her eyes, she was back in the nightmare. This time, the monster was closer than ever. She could feel its hot breath on her face and its razor-sharp teeth gnashing in front of her. "Please, help me," Mary screamed, thrashing in her bed. Suddenly, Mary heard a voice. It was faint at first, but it grew louder and louder until it was right next to her. "Mary, wake up. You're having a nightmare." The voice belonged to her roommate, Sarah. Mary opened her eyes and looked around the room. It was dark, but she could see that Sarah was sitting up in her bed, looking concerned. I saw the monster," Mary stammered, still half asleep. "It's okay, Mary. It was just a dream. Go back to sleep," Sarah reassured her. Mary tried to relax, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She lay there, listening to the sound of Sarah's breathing, trying to calm herself down. But then she heard something else. It was a scratching sound, coming from under the bed. "Sarah, do you hear that?" Mary whispered, her voice shaking. "Hear what?" Sarah asked, looking confused. "The scratching," Mary replied. "It's coming from under the bed." Sarah leaned over the edge of her bed and looked under Mary's bed. There was nothing there. "See? There's nothing there," Sarah said, trying to calm Mary down. But Mary knew what she had heard. She couldn't shake the feeling that the monster from her nightmares was real, and it was lurking in the shadows. The next few days were a blur for Mary. She couldn't concentrate on anything, and she was constantly on edge. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see the monster's glowing eyes staring back at her. One night, Mary woke up to find the room in complete darkness. She sat up in her bed, trying to get her bearings. That's when she saw it. The monster was standing at the foot of her bed, its eyes glowing in the darkness. Mary tried to scream, but nothing came out. She was paralyzed with fear. The monster took a step closer, its jaws snapping in anticipation. Suddenly, the lights flicked on, and Mary saw Sarah standing in the doorway, holding a baseball bat. "Get out of here, you monster," Sarah yelled, swinging the bat at the creature. To Mary's surprise, the monster vanished into thin air. It was as if it had never been there at all. "What was that thing?" Mary asked, still shaking. "I don't know, but I'm not going to let it hurt you," Sarah replied, putting an arm around Mary. As the days went by, Mary's nightmares became less frequent. She started to feel like maybe she had just been imagining things, and she began to relax. But one night, as she was getting ready for bed, she saw the monster again, this time in the mirror. Mary let out a scream and ran out of the room, straight into Sarah. "What's wrong? What happened?" Sarah asked, looking concerned. "The monster, it was in the mirror," Mary replied, trying to catch her breath. Sarah's expression turned serious. "We need to do something about this. I don't want you to keep living in fear." Sarah did some research and discovered that the monster in Mary's nightmares was actually a demon that was known for feeding on people's fears. It was said to be invulnerable to physical attacks, but there was one way to get rid of it: by facing it head-on and conquering one's fears. The two of them decided to confront the demon together. They sat down in the middle of the room, holding hands, and closed their eyes. The demon appeared before them, but this time Mary was ready. "You don't control me," Mary said, her voice steady. "I won't let you feed on my fears anymore." The demon growled, but Mary stood her ground. She looked it straight in the eye, refusing to be afraid. Suddenly, the demon started to shrink and dissolve, until it disappeared completely. Mary opened her eyes to find Sarah smiling at her. "You did it. You conquered your fears." Mary felt a weight lifted off her shoulders. For the first time in weeks, she felt truly free. "Thank you, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without you," Mary said, hugging her friend. From that night on, Mary's nightmares stopped. She knew that the demon was gone for good, and she could finally sleep peacefully. And even though she would never forget the terror that she had felt, she knew that she was stronger for having faced her fears head-on. The next few days passed by peacefully, and Mary felt like her life was finally getting back to normal. But one evening, as she was walking home from work, she felt like she was being followed. She quickened her pace, but the footsteps behind her only grew louder. She turned around, but there was no one there. She tried to calm herself down, telling herself that it was just her imagination, but the feeling of unease persisted. When Mary got home, she found a note on her doorstep. It was written in a language that she didn't understand, but the message was clear: the demon was back. She immediately called Sarah, who rushed over to her house. "We defeated the demon, Sarah. How is this even possible?" Mary asked, her voice shaking. Sarah's face was grim. "It's possible that the demon has found a way to come back, or maybe there's another one out there. We need to find out what's going on." Together, they decided to seek help from a priest who was known for his expertise in exorcisms. When they arrived at the church, they found the priest waiting for them. "I have been expecting you," he said solemnly. "Come with me." The priest led them to a room where he began to perform the exorcism. Mary and Sarah watched in terror as the demon materialized in front of them. "You thought you could defeat me? You're nothing but weaklings," the demon taunted them. But the priest remained undaunted. He continued to chant and recite prayers, and soon the demon began to weaken. Just when they thought it was over, the demon started to laugh. "You may have defeated me this time, but there are many more of us out there. You cannot win." And with those words, the demon vanished. Mary and Sarah left the church feeling defeated and helpless. They knew that there was a possibility that more demons were out there, waiting to prey on their fears. But as they walked home, Mary felt a sudden surge of determination. She knew that she couldn't let the demons control her life, and that she had to fight back. "I'm not going to let them win, Sarah. We're going to find a way to defeat them all," Mary said, her voice filled with conviction. Sarah smiled at her friend. "I'm with you, Mary. We'll do this together." And with that, they walked into the night, ready to face whatever horrors lay ahead. Over the next few days, Mary and Sarah researched everything they could find about demons and their weaknesses. They learned that demons could be weakened by holy water and that certain prayers could banish them back to the realm they came from. Armed with this knowledge, they set out to find the materials they needed to fight the demons. They went to church and got holy water, and Sarah even managed to get her hands on a Bible that was known for its powerful prayers. That night, they sat down in Mary's living room, surrounded by all the materials they had gathered. "We can do this," Mary said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We have everything we need to defeat them." Sarah nodded, her face determined. "Let's do it." They closed their eyes and started to pray, their voices joining together in a powerful chant. Suddenly, the room began to shake, and they could hear the sound of growling all around them. Mary and Sarah opened their eyes to see the demons surrounding them. But this time, they were ready. Mary splashed holy water on the demons, causing them to shriek and writhe in pain. Sarah recited powerful prayers, and the demons began to weaken. The battle raged on for what seemed like hours. But finally, the demons began to shrink and disappear, one by one. As the last demon vanished, Mary and Sarah collapsed onto the floor, exhausted but victorious. "We did it," Mary said, a huge smile spreading across her face. Sarah looked at her friend with admiration. "You were amazing, Mary. I couldn't have done this without you." Mary felt a sense of relief wash over her. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she was in control of her life. But just as she was about to relax, she heard a voice behind her. "Well done, my children. But there are always more demons out there, waiting to be defeated." Mary and Sarah turned around to see the priest standing behind them, a look of pride on his face. "We will be ready," Mary said, her voice filled with determination. And with those words, they left the house, ready to face whatever demons lay ahead. As Mary and Sarah walked down the street, they couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. They knew that there were always more demons out there, waiting to prey on their fears. Suddenly, they heard a rustling in the bushes. They turned to see a dark figure emerging from the shadows. Mary and Sarah stood frozen, unsure of what to do. But as the figure drew closer, they could see that it was a woman. "Please help me," the woman said, her voice trembling. Mary and Sarah looked at each other, unsure of what to do. They had just defeated a group of demons, but they couldn't be sure if this woman was truly in need of help. "What's wrong?" Mary asked, her voice cautious. "I'm being followed by something. I think it's a demon," the woman said, her eyes wide with fear. Mary and Sarah exchanged a look. They couldn't let the demons continue to prey on innocent people. They had to help her. "Come with us," Mary said, her voice firm. "We can protect you." The woman nodded, and they set off down the street. But as they walked, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Suddenly, the woman stopped in her tracks. "Wait," she said. "I think we're being followed." Mary and Sarah turned around to see a group of demons emerging from the shadows. They had been tricked. The demons surrounded them, their eyes glowing with a sinister light. Mary and Sarah knew that they were outnumbered, but they refused to give up without a fight. They pulled out their holy water and Bibles, ready to do battle once again. The fight was intense. Mary and Sarah splashed holy water on the demons, causing them to shriek in pain. Sarah recited prayers, and the demons began to shrink and disappear. But there were too many of them. Mary and Sarah were quickly becoming overwhelmed. Just as they thought all was lost, the priest appeared, brandishing a cross. "Back off, demons," he commanded. The demons hesitated, their eyes darting between the group. In that moment, Mary and Sarah realized that they had to work together to defeat the demons. They joined forces with the priest, and together they fought the demons back. In the end, they emerged victorious once again. The demons were banished back to the realm they came from, and the woman was safe. As they walked back to Mary's house, Mary felt a sense of relief wash over her. She knew that there would always be more demons out there, but she was ready to face them, no matter what. "We did it," she said, a smile spreading across her face. Sarah looked at her friend with admiration. "We make a good team, Mary." And with those words, they walked into the night, ready to face whatever horrors lay ahead. As they walked, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She looked around, but there was no one in sight. "Did you feel that?" she asked Sarah, her voice shaking. Sarah nodded, her eyes scanning the darkness. "We need to keep moving. We're almost there." As they approached Mary's house, they saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was the woman they had saved earlier. "Thank you," she said, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come along." Mary smiled. "We're just glad we could help." As they entered the house, Mary felt a sense of relief wash over her. They had defeated the demons, and they had saved an innocent life. But as they sat down on the couch, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Suddenly, she heard a voice behind her. "You thought you could defeat us? You thought you were strong enough?" Mary turned around to see a demon standing in the corner of the room, its eyes glowing with a sinister light. Sarah pulled out her holy water, ready to do battle once again. But as she splashed the demon, it laughed and disappeared. Mary and Sarah exchanged a look, unsure of what to do. They had defeated the demons earlier, so why were they back? Suddenly, they heard a voice behind them. "You can't defeat us. We will always be here, waiting for you." Mary and Sarah turned around to see the woman they had saved earlier, her eyes glowing with a sinister light. "You were so easy to fool," she said, a wicked smile spreading across her face. Mary and Sarah realized then that they had been tricked. The woman they had saved was a demon all along, and they had fallen right into her trap. But they refused to give up without a fight. They pulled out their Bibles and started reciting powerful prayers. The demon woman laughed, her eyes glowing brighter. "You think your prayers can defeat me? You are nothing." But as they continued to pray, the demon woman began to shrink and disappear, just like the demons before her. As she vanished into thin air, Mary and Sarah collapsed onto the floor, exhausted but victorious. "We did it," Mary said, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah looked at her friend with admiration. "You are so brave, Mary. I couldn't have done this without you." Mary smiled weakly. "We make a good team, Sarah." As they sat there catching their breath, Mary couldn't shake the feeling that there were more demons out there, waiting for them. But she knew that with Sarah by her side, they could face anything that came their way. As they stood up to leave, Mary felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around to see a little girl, no more than 6 years old, standing behind her. "Can you help me?" the girl asked in a soft voice. Mary's heart melted at the sight of the little girl. "Of course, sweetie. What do you need?" The girl pointed towards a dark alley. "There's a monster there. He's been following me, and I'm scared." Mary and Sarah exchanged a look. They knew they couldn't ignore the girl's plea for help. Together, they walked towards the alley, their eyes scanning the darkness for any signs of danger. Suddenly, They heard a low growl coming from behind a dumpster. They approached it cautiously, ready to do battle once again. But as they looked behind the dumpster, they were met with a surprise. There, curled up in a ball, was a tiny puppy. It was shivering and scared, its big brown eyes looking up at them with gratitude. Mary and Sarah looked at each other, relieved and happy. They had expected to find a monster, but instead, they found a helpless puppy in need of a home. As they picked up the puppy, Mary felt a sense of warmth and happiness wash over her. Maybe, just maybe, the nightmares would finally stop. Together, Mary and Sarah walked back to Mary's house, their new furry friend in tow. As they settled in for the night, Mary couldn't help but smile. She had faced her fears and come out victorious. And now, with a new puppy to care for, she knew that life would never be the same again.